right, so this guy got to play about 4 hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows. And if you don't know about Assassin's Creed Shadows, this is a game that's been shrouded in a little bit of controversy. I did watch another video of a guy. It was like a Japanese guy. I want to say he was drunk, but he was just pointing out all of the flaws in there, and it was pretty bad, and it was pretty upsetting. But they've been trying really hard to correct the bad like problems that they had in it. I'm not gonna give my opinion on the game just yet, but we'll kind of see what's going on with this one, and we'll see how the game is and if they fixed anything.
So there is a lot riding on Assassin's Creed Shadows right now. If you've been keeping up with Ubisoft, you know that the company is in a lot of trouble. A bunch of their projects got delayed. We've got situations like the layoffs and the studio shutdowns, their major releases not meeting sales expectations.
Yeah, Skull and Bones, and then Star Wars Outlaws, I think.
Bring them back from the rut. So I was very curious to play the title. I was able to get 4 hours hands-on with it. And in this video, I'll be sharing my thoughts.
I don't know. I think this game is gonna sell well. I don't think it's gonna sell as well as they want it to. I think it's gonna be kind of like Dragon Age Veilguard, where like it clearly flopped, but it still sold like 3 million copies. Just because it's such a big studio, and Assassin's Creed is such a big IP. And a lot of people see like Assassin's Creed Japan and they're like, wow, that's so cool. And that, to be fair, like that's what I want to say. Like I want an Assassin's Creed based in Japan. I'm just not optimistic.
I do think that this game is gonna sell relatively well.
Oh, he agrees with me.
Usually tends to sell well, and with the Japan setting, this is definitely a game that's gaining a lot of traction. Now, whether I think this game will be the one that pushes Assassin's Creed to the next level, that will break away from Ubisoft's staleness as far as their game design is concerned, that I'm not quite sure of. Within my 4 hours hands-on time, I will say that I'm not fully convinced that this is gonna win over those who have felt that Assassin's Creed has gone kind of stale. It's gonna come down to whether there is still that sense of an overabundance of content that feels
I don't know. I think, and this is not related to any of the controversies surrounding the game, I haven't really enjoyed Assassin's Creed for a while because it doesn't really feel like you're an assassin anymore in a lot of these. I remember, what is it, Assassin's Creed 1, it was literally just assassination missions. That's pretty much all the game was. You went to like a safe house, you planned an assassination, you assassinated somebody, and that was it, right? Obviously they had the story for it, but that was the game. And then you go into like Assassin's Creed 2, and it still had like most of the same ones, but he like discovered the Order of Assassins in like a different way. And then it kind of like it got a little bit different, especially with, I think, starting with like Black Flag is when they started to drastically change it away from what Assassin's Creed kind of was at its core. Because climbing on the wall and like jumping into like haystacks, I think was always like a part of Assassin's Creed, but that was never really what made Assassin's Creed like really good. That's my perspective. I don't know if people will agree with that.
Substantial, that doesn't feel handcrafted. A lot of that copy and pasted stuff that Ubisoft open world games tend to have. As far as like the story and narrative are concerned, nothing shown in this demo really grabbed me, in some part to do with just how stiff some of the animations look during cutscenes, and the presentation is just, when I look at what, say, like Ghost of Tsushima did,
that looks horrible.
In comparison, this just feels like a bit of a step down, but maybe the narrative will hook me as the rest of the game goes along. But so far, I just didn't have that narrative hook.
I don't know.
For me,
they look really rigid. I don't know how to
part of any
describe it.
Driven single-player experience. And there's just a bit of awkwardness to some of the dialogue and the writing that don't lend themselves to natural feeling conversations that don't allow me to feel fully immersed in everything that's going on. And based on what this gameplay session presented, I'll be honest with you, neither of the protagonists are particularly interesting. They don't have any like personality quirks that stand out. They don't have any like awesome chemistry that make their interactions compelling. Nothing in these initial hours showed anything interesting that drew me to these characters. Hopefully that will change over time. I will say that in terms of gameplay, Yasuke and Naoe do feel quite...
I think they had a lot more opportunities than Yasuke. I don't know. I'm curious to see what Japan thinks about that.
different. Yasuke definitely feels like that bulldozer, the hammer, if you will, who will trounce through enemies in combat scenarios. Now is definitely more about agility, about being stealthy. If Yasuke is the hammer, then Naoe would be the scalpel. She can still hold her own in combat. You'll just have an easier time with Yasuke, who has those powerhouse moves and active skills to be able to trounce enemies. And not to mention that with Yasuke, for example, doing parkour...
Dude, I don't know, this combat looks worse than, like, old Assassin's Creed games.
It's just a lot more awkward because of how slow and chonky he is, whereas now it just kind of breezes through obstacle.
I remember, I want to say it was Assassin's Creed 2 when they really started doing it. Well, no, because even the first one, they had a big emphasis on, like, counters, when you were actually, like, sword fighting somebody. And basically, you just timed it right, and you countered the guy, and you killed him with his own sword. And it was super easy. It was like, it was not hard combat at all, but it was pretty satisfying, I guess, for what it was. And I don't think it was ever like really about a challenge for like hand-to-hand combat. I think there was definitely parts where you could die, but for the most part, it wasn't like a super hard game.
And environments, and she just has all the right tools for stealth. And so it's a matter of what kind of approach you want to take with every mission, with every scenario. Whether you want to just
make like a Souls-like Dark or Assassin's Creed
Yasuke can do, or whether you want to kind of take it through the roofs or through the shadows.
Sounds pretty disrespectful to someone's house.
Gameplay of the two characters,
just barge through their door.
Feeling distinct, feels relatively good. I'd say Yasuke's combat, while I still need to play more of it, there is like a nice sense of impact with every strike. I do think that some of the enemy combat move designs just a little weird, where it feels like you're attacking them and then you don't see them get stunned by some of your stronger attacks, and they're automatically able to dish out attacks that will stop your momentum. And so there is an element of that kind of disrupted the flow. Combat can feel good when it's flowing well, but then there are other times where just that bit of jankiness comes in, where it feels like it's just not the most refined combat system.
Yeah, it looks bad. It looks like if they had taken the combat system from any other Assassin's Creed game and put it in this, it would have been better.
And as far as the stealth and parkour goes, you've got the parkour up and parkour down buttons that you can hold, so you can have more finesse in the parkour. I do like that Naoe has that grappling hook now, which makes it so much easier to get to rooftops. Vertical traversal feels just a lot better because of Naoe's new tools and capabilities, especially with that grappling hook, which not only allows you to ascend to greater heights easily, but allows you to like swing through trees and whatnot. The stealth system now has the ability for you to go prone.
Assassin's Creed Spider-Man
allows for just a bit more flexibility. So there are definitely some mechanical elements that I did enjoy from moment to moment, though I do still hate scenarios where one of the larger type enemies, like the brute archetypes, when you go for an assassination, if they're higher level than you, then a blade through the throat or through the face or through the head won't end up killing them. It'll deplete
that's really
a significant portion of their life bar, but not take
them Assassin's down. Creed,
it just
not
makes
Fighter's Creed.
Assassination feel a little more secondary, less satisfactory. I've never liked the introduction of that kind of scaling for the assassination part of the game, and the fact that that makes a return is just a little bit annoying. In terms of the overall game design, that's where I'm still quite unsure as to whether this is gonna fall prey to the same old Ubisoft open world formula. They do try to make exploration and going after quest objectives a little more engaging by having the system where you can send a scout and you can kind of pull that up on your map, and there's this big area that you can send your scouts in to unearth the objective marker by using the hints on the objectives to know where on the map you use that big area scout system, almost like as a radar. And I'll be honest with you, that didn't really enhance the sense of exploration. It doesn't feel like there's much of a challenge to it or sense of like critical thinking involved.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
The clues are so obvious and the scouting system is like so powerful.
Follow the yellow
It
paint.
just feels like it's just additional button presses to then just end up following a quest marker after essentially some very easy investigation. And I didn't get to mess around with side quests all that much. There was one I stumbled upon where there's this orphan girl who was asking me for help, but I wasn't able to do that side quest before my time ran out. So I don't know what the quality of the side quests will be, whether they'll feel kind of really cheap and very kind of thrown together, or whether all of the side quests feel like they have substantially written arcs where every side quest feels like it has a place in the world and like it was handcrafted.
Dude, this character model is
instead
horrible.
of just littering the world with really menial feeling tasks that don't make for compelling side quests. That's a trap that a lot of Ubisoft open world games tend to fall into. I don't know how the sense of exploration will feel like in this game, whether it's going to be the same affair of just like following a bunch of map markers based on what the Ubi Towers reveal. And yes, the Ubi Towers are back. You will be going to the peaks of certain architectures to reveal parts of the map and the activities that lay there. The map itself is also just massive from what I could see, and I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing. I prefer density over volume, quality over quantity. I just hope that the open world actually feels fun to explore and like the activities within them don't feel as menial as they've been in the past, but I don't know, it just feels like every time I hope for that, Assassin's Creed tends to disappoint in that area. And Ubisoft open world...
I don't know. It's a...
games in general tend to disappoint in that area. So while usually I'd be excited for a world that's bigger, when it comes to Ubisoft, that actually worries me more because it feels like it's going to just be stretched thin, this map that won't have enough substance to back the size of it. Though I hope I'm wrong. At the very least, though, the open world does
I
look
feel like he's
fairly
probably going to be
beautiful.
wrong.
I do think the environmental design, the vegetation and terrain...
That's crazy. Ubisoft used to be and like the thing is, developers change because the people working at Ubisoft aren't the same people who made Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, right? And I want to say it was Assassin's Creed Brotherhood that was in like Venice, and people were using the map from like it might be a wrong game, but like people were using experiences from that game to like navigate in real world Italy. It was crazy. They were like, yeah, I know this place. Oh yeah, no, I've been here before. Yeah, you just got to go like right down this street and you'll get to like the Sistine Chapel or whatever. I don't know.
Rain, the architectures and all of that does look pretty. When the wind blows, you can see the foliage just kind of swaying about as you ride your horse through Japan, and all of that does look very pretty. So it's nice to just kind of take the environment in, but I just hope that there's actually stuff to do in the environment that isn't boring and that all feels kind of interesting and has some sense of intrigue, and it feels like you want to actually partake in them instead of it feeling like a chore. I also need more time to feel out the progression system of this game. It's kind of how, you know, recent Assassin's Creed games have worked, where you level up or you gain essentially like skill points or perk
I'm not a
points,
huge
whatever
fan
you
of
wanna
that
call
for
them,
Assassin's Creed.
and invest them in skills. Both characters have their own skill trees as they all have their different weapon sets, both ranged and melee. And a lot of these perks do seem to offer substantial additions to combat, especially where those active skills are concerned. And then there's the equipment system where it feels like each piece of armor does offer like substantial perks that shape the playstyle of your respective two characters, of your protagonists. I just hope that the armor pieces are more about quality versus quantity, where it doesn't feel like you're looting a bunch of stuff and then picking from them, where it's not about finding the epic or legendary versions of the same stuff, but rather finding unique pieces that each offer their own effects, and deciding which one to equip is a matter of playstyle and the perks they offer, rather than these incremental statistical updates where you'll barely feel the difference. But yeah, the game definitely does try to present scenarios where each character is viable, but one might be better suited for. Like, you can still use Naoe in combat-heavy scenarios. You might just struggle a little more compared to Yasuke, who was built to bulldoze.
Uh, Also, past the whatever controversy is surrounding this game, right? Past that, I don't like the idea of having two protagonists that you have to swap between. And I know it's popular sometimes. Like it was really big in like the Grand Theft Auto 5, and it's probably going to be in Grand Theft Auto 6. Actually, I think it is going to be in Grand Theft Auto 6. But I just don't like that. I like being able to focus on one storyline and have like side characters branching off of that.
Goes through combat, and then for stuff that requires a bit more finesse, a bit more stealth, where it's easier to go through the rooftops to reach an objective or to steal something or to assassinate someone. Now it might just allow for a more expedient way to do that. But ultimately, it does feel like both characters are viable in whatever scenario you're thrown into, as long as you're willing to go through the hurdles of picking a character who's maybe less suited for the mission type. It's also worth noting that outside of missions, when you're out and about in the open world, you can switch characters anytime super easily from the menu. So you're able to switch play styles basically at almost any time, and at key junctures in missions, you'll be able to pick which character you want to play as. But yeah, I mean, so far it feels like the bottom line is, if you like modern Assassin's Creed, this is just more of that with some refinements to combat and the parkour system and stealth. I think the moment-to-moment gameplay already does feel better than the previous entry, Valhalla. But moment-to-moment gameplay is one thing, and then there's like what's
I never
around
played
the
Valhalla.
moment-to-moment gameplay, the activities that you partake in, the level design, just the pacing and
I never
flow
played
of
the other one in
open
like
world and
Egypt
the main
either.
campaign, all of those things I've still yet to see how that will pan out in the final game. But I don't know, part of me feels like this is going to be yet another scenario of like the game just being too big for its own good. There's such a thing as less is more, and that's a lesson that I think Ubisoft just doesn't seem to want to learn, and that's something that's afflicted a lot of, I think, Assassin's Creed games. The formula still feels similar enough to previous modern Assassin's Creed games, where I'm not entirely sure that by the time I actually play the full game, this is going to convince me that the Assassin's Creed formula has, really tried to evolve and really get more creative. Aside from some tense combat and stealth
I mean, the stealth part looks pretty standard, I guess.
scenarios, I don't think this is going to be the game that will convert you to this style of Assassin's Creed if it's something that you haven't enjoyed. The setting is cool and well realized, but the story and the characters and the scenarios not hooking me means that if the activities do end up being a chore and a bore, then this is going to be a tough game to get through. So I really hope that narratively and in terms of how compelling the characters are, all of that picks up very quickly in the final game. So yeah, that's all I have to say based on the 4 hours that I've played. I do want to finish the game before I share my final thoughts, but I'm not convinced that this will be able to live up to or surpass the likes of Ghost of Tsushima, which for me kind of became the new Assassin's Creed. Just feel a little smoother and a little more versatile, and like you're more in control. But who knows, maybe I'll come to appreciate Assassin's Creed Shadows if I play more of it. But my experience with Ubisoft's last few releases just has me apprehensive. But at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Assassin's Creed Shadows based on everything you've seen. And to be further
Hey,
updated
Sarah.
on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time.
Young, yeah.
Young Yeah.